Okay, good afternoon, good morning still. Good morning, everyone. And thanks very much for the WWF to invite us to speak about our work here at the conference. And personally, I've been so honored because WWF has been always a source of the insights ever since I started studying environmental issues even. I'm looking forward to presenting work and also learning a lot about the panelists as well. So my name is Takayoshi Kato, Kato. I'm a policy analyst at the Environment Directorate of the OECD, and I'm working in a team called the Green Action Task Force, which has got the specific regional focus of Eastern Europe, Caucasus and Central Asian countries. So I'd like to begin my presentation. So would you be able to put up my slides? Okay, thank you. So I'd like to talk about the, our work on the mobilizing green finance in the middle income countries, especially in the Eastern Europe, Caucasus and Central Asian countries. Here we go. So then the Green Action Task Force, which I'm working in, hosted by the OECD, has been supporting the countries of the Eastern Europe, the Caucasus and Central Asian countries. We call them like EECCA or ECA countries to reconcile the environmental and economic goals since 1990s. So obviously Eastern Europe includes the Belarus, Moldova, Ukraine. Caucasus includes the Armenia, Azerbaijan, and Georgia. Central Asia includes the Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, and Turkmenistan, and Uzbekistan. Which most of them are geographically very close to Bulgaria and historically has had a close relationship, I believe. And just to give you the idea of the income levels of the ECA countries, most of them, as you can see, except for Tajikistan, are either upper or lower middle income countries. So Bulgaria is much wealthier than most of them, about, I think, the 7,500 real GDP per capita, I think. But I hope that some of the key messages of the information may be also relevant to the other middle-income countries and also the Bulgaria as well. So I'd like to highlight some of the OECD work on the green finance in the ECA countries. So firstly, last year we looked into the development finance directed to the ECA countries and how the ECA countries are working together with their development cooperation partners, including the MDBs and the bilateral donors and the development agencies. I'm so pleased to be in the same panel as the EBRD colleague and also the SDC colleague as well, and also the think tank like the WWF. So, but here the development finance includes the ODA, offshore development assistance, and finance from the development finance institutions, MDB and bilateral development banks, and the international climate funds, including the climate investment funds, GEF, and the Green Climate Fund, although the GCF is not included in the statistics yet. Before I give you some numbers, I would like to just give you a notion of what the climate finance actually consists of. The climate finance has no single universal definitions under the UN system yet, but could include finance from the various sources, including the private and public, international and domestic sources. UNFCCC estimated the global total climate finance to be between 340 billion US dollars and 650 billion US dollars. But compared to that, the climate-related ODA, climate funds and MDB finance is relatively small, but it plays an important role in, especially in the middle-income countries and also, of course, the lower income level countries in many ways. Of course, providing the financial resources, but also bridging the knowledge and expertise and also the innovation gap they've got experiencing elsewhere in the world as well. And also, of course, importantly, they have an important role in catalyzing private sector finance as well. Just give you some example of the numbers and the climate-related development finance that was reported to the OECD system in 2013 and 14. The global level in the period between 2013 and 14, And bilateral and multilateral development providers of the development finance committed 47 billion US dollars per year of climate-related development finance to the developing countries across the world, of which 3 billion was directed to the ECA countries. In terms of thematic balance between climate change mitigation and climate change adaptation, it's always challenging to strike the right balance between mitigation and adaptation finance, especially for the middle-income countries where there's large investment needs for the energy system, for example, the transport system, which relatively more easily attract the mitigation finance rather than the adaptation finance. And this is the case always even in the countries which said that the adaptation is a priority in the climate targets called nationally determined contributions. So here's a bit of the picture of the sectoral analysis. So unsurprisingly, the energy generation and supply sector has got committed by far the largest amount of climate-related development finance, followed by agriculture, water supply and sanitation, industry development, and the many development finance institutions, including EBRD, has extended the credit lines through the local banks, which goes to the banking sector climate-related development finance as well. Of course, not all the development finance can be climate-related, but this figure is trying to show a little bit about how much of the total development finance is aiming at the climate-related activities of the projects. So we can see that almost 70% of the energy sector development finance targets the climate-related activities, whereas there's a much larger potential for the other sectors like agriculture, transport, and industry sector to mainstream climate-related considerations into the development finance. So the development finance is crucial, but it's not obviously enough to be a main source of the green finance, especially for the middle-income countries, which has a less and less concessional window. So an important question here would also be around mobilizing green finance would also be the twofold, maybe, how to further mobilize the private sector investment in general, and also how to align such private sector investment with the country's environmental and social concerns. So building on last year's work we did on development finance, we are now doing a little bit more country-level analysis of how to further mobilize the green finance to support the targets, or implementation of the actions to achieve the targets that they have already expressed. And today I'd like to draw on the current study. We work with the country Georgia, which is also a small country, less than 4 million people living, and also the income level is around $4,000 per capita. So among various components of the work that we are doing, I'd like to show a few issues around the mobilization of green finance in the countries, which may also, I hope, may be relevant to other middle-income countries as well. So I hope, we have categorized these issues into 3 broad categories shown here. The first one is the low-risk return profile of the climate-related projects and activities, and the second one is the limited access to the low-cost long-term finance, and the third one is about the non-economic barriers. So here are some initial findings on the key challenges into the mobilizing green finance, and the first component, the low-risk return profiles of the typical green finance projects affected by the various issues like policy predictability challenges, or the low level of the energy and transport tariffs, and also the policy misalignment between the climate policies and the other sorts of industry development policies, and also the technical project risk, like track records and the scalability of the projects, all those things. It's actually great that the Georgian has been working on the very strategic level policy documents over the years, and they have got the target as well. But I mean, it's now so crucial to look into how a range of the policy strategic policy documents should be implemented, and also how these policy documents can send the strong signals to the investors and the private sector businesses. And also the low energy prices in the country, and also the low transport tariffs in the countries help to address the energy access, for example, and affordability issues in the countries, which is great as such. But at the same time, it also makes the energy efficiency measures and also the renewable energy projects less financially attractive, obviously. And also the policy misalignment. There's been the active reform on the deregularization of the various tax systems and the laws and the legal systems in the country, which is positively affecting the increase of the FDI, foreign direct investment, and also the over GDP growth. But at the same time, it has kept the environmental regulations and the energy regulations still relatively lenient compared to, for example, the OECD member countries. We've got the limited low-cost access to low-cost long-term finance, caused by the various issues around credit rating issues and the high interest rates and high collateral requirements as well, and limited securities market development, where bank lending is basically, collateral lending is basically the predominant source of finance, and bonds and equities are really limited, especially for the green stuff. And the limited options for the financial sources and instruments, which is related to the issues that I mentioned just now, and also the risk mitigation instruments actually widely used, but still it's worth looking into the different types of the risks and to see where the important risks are not adequately covered or not, and how they can be covered by the public interventions or the other types of the private sector interventions. There are also the competition for the capital with the other infrastructure asset and with the retail banking. So like a mortgage loans for the households rather than the big energy efficiency projects or the other types of renewable energies as well. And non-economic barriers, as in many other countries, are actually the big obstacles to the green finance in the countries. Information gap among both financial institutions and their clients, as well as the capacity gaps at the all level, the governments, private sector businesses, and in financial institutions. Concerns about the social impacts, indeed addressing political economic questions around the tightening the environmental regulations and the increasing the energy efficiency is crucial, but it's quite politically challenging in the countries, so it's been slightly untouched in many ways. So just to help the things move forward, especially for these political economic questions, we are also working on the inventory of the energy subsidies in the EU Eastern Partnership countries, which include the Armenia, Azerbaijan, Belarus, Georgia, Moldova, and Ukraine. But I'm not getting into too much details, but all major types of the energy subsidies exist in the countries. The scales of the energy subsidies are very different among the countries, but in general, energy subsidies are actually leading to the substantial drain on the government budget in the countries. So, and also the support for the renewable energy projects and also the energy efficiency measures are much more limited and much less than the support for the fossil fuel production and use. Okay, I've got some detailed descriptions, but we also are doing some other work streams as well in the region on the green finance as well, including the transport sector investment program and also the case studies on the credit lines extended by the international financial institutions. With that, I would like to stop, and thanks very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kato. And as you're sitting back here, I'll ask another question, and I hope you can answer. So, you know, everybody knows here that Bulgaria is going to chair the Council of European Union from January 1st next year. So, how do you think? What is Bulgaria's role? How can Bulgaria help for supporting those financial instruments? about the other countries in the region you spoke about?
I think key issues around the mobilization of the green finance is quite different across the country, between the countries. But I think the Bulgaria has gone through the sort of similar path to what actually the countries we are working with in the Eastern Europe and Caucasus and Central Asian countries are facing at the moment, will be facing in the near future. So I think the transferring these experiences you've got would be a great asset for them, a great insight into how they can tackle the problems that I actually outlined in my presentation as well. So that's I think a great lessons, I think, for the countries.